Thank you. Oki, welcome to our division office located on the traditional land and territory of the Niitsitapi, Piikani, Kainai, Siksika, the Blackfoot people within the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta.
Thank you. We will now stand for O Canada. Any emergent changes to the agenda? Seeing none. Any declaration of conflict of interest that the Board of Trustees declare if they have any conflict of interest relating to the agenda items from the September 9th, 2020 Board Organizational Meeting, and if so, declare them. Okay, seeing none. Moving on to action items. D1, Remuneration Committee. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees receive no increase in the remuneration formula for the 2021 and hold the pay schedules at the 2019-2020 level as recommended by the Remuneration Committee. Can I get someone to make that motion? Trustee Burdette, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, we met as a remuneration committee and we went over our histories for the last 10 years as boards and looked at all of the background to do with trustee remuneration, and we considered the changes that we made last year and thought that they were working very well. And we looked at the COVID situation and the future for our finances with future cuts coming, and we decided as a committee that we would recommend this recommendation to keep our remuneration as is for this year. And that's all I have. Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Sorry, open it up to the floor for questions and comments. No, nothing. I appreciate everything that the committee went and looked through all the history of our past pays, and we really want to keep our students at the forefront when we are making decisions, and I appreciate the committee looking at that and taking into account our students, and so I'm pleased with the recommendation. And so if there's no other questions or comments, then we'll move to all in favor. Passed. Thank you. We'll move on to our appointing of standing committees and board representation. E1, appointment of standing committees from the 2019-2020 school year. All trustees are appointed to the following 4 committees. Should that be 2020, 2021? For this year? Yeah. Right, so we're just reaffirming, okay, for the into the future, sorry. All trustees are appointed to the following 4 committees. Superintendent Evaluation Committee, Board Self-Evaluation Committee, Planning Committee, First Nations, Métis Inuit, and LRSD Liaison Committee. Moving on to Audit Committee, we have our chair, Brad Toon, members, John McKee and Jim Burdett. Labor Relations Committee, which is our provincial negotiations, we have our chair, Greg Long, members, Jim Burdett and Lacey Poitras. Appeal Committee, all board members as alternate. We have our chair, Jim Burdett, members, Brad Toon and Greg Long. Discipline Committee, all board members as alternates. We have our chair, Jim Burdett, members Greg Long and Lacey Poitras. Awards and Recognition Committee, all board members as alternates. We have chair, Lori Hodges, and member Brad Toon. Professional Learning Committee, chair, Jim Burdett, member Clara Yegas. We have our Policy Review Committee, chair Clara Yegas, members Jem McKee, Brad Toon. ATA LRSD Trustee Liaison Committee, chair Greg Long, member Lori Hodges. Regional School Council, all regional school councils, chair Lacey Poitras, vice chair Lori Hodges. Regional Council of Student Leaders, facilitator Lori Hodges, vice facilitator Greg Long. Trustee Remuneration, chair Jim Burdett, members Clara Yegas and Brad Toon. Advocacy Committee, chair Lacey Poitras, member Clara Yegas. Emergency Response Committee, chair Brad Toon, member Clara Yegas. E2, other representations. ASBA Zone 6 representation, chair Greg Long, alternate Lacey Poitras. LRSD Wisdom and Guidance Council, chair Lacey Poitras, alternate John McKee. Alberta Southwest Regional Alliance, all trustees. Committees E3, Committee Board Representatives, Livingston Ski Academy Society, chair Clara Yegas, alternate Greg Long. ASBA Rural Caucus, chair Lori Hodges, alternate Clara Yegas. Pincher Creek Community Early Learning Center, one representative, Lacey Poitras. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees reaffirm the 2020-2021 committee representation as per the 2019-2020 school year as presented or amended. Can I get someone to make that motion? Trustee Yegas? I'll open the floor for any questions or comments. Trustee Long?
Trustee Poitras and myself would like to change positions. I would remove myself from school council leadership, and I would like to put myself on the Wisdom and Guidance Council.
Okay, Trustee Poitras, would you like to respond?
Yeah, we've discussed this before the meeting, and I've really learned and grown a lot being on the Wisdom and Guidance Council, and I've had that opportunity for 3 years, and so I would love to have Greg have that opportunity and to be able to spend more time with some of our students in the Regional Council of Student Leaders. So I would agree that I'd like to make that change.
Okay. Under the LRSD Wisdom and Guidance Council, Lacey Poitras was chair of that committee, and John McKee is also on that committee. So the two of you will need to decide who wants to be chair. Trustee McKee?
First of all, I would like to thank Lacey with her support on the Wisdom and Guidance Council. She was very valuable member, and Long will certainly be as well.
Just move your mic forward just a smidgen there, please, Trustee McKee. There we go.
Okay, let's see if this is better. We used to have on that there were a co-chairs for both positions, so that you could have the same people at the meeting all the time. There's not a whole lot of meetings for Wisdom and Guidance Council, but we felt that it was important to have the same people there all the time. So if possible, it would be my recommendation to have either a co-chair or a vice chair for either one of those two spots.
Thank you. Any other changes? Trustee Yegus?
I don't understand what trustee McKee was asking for that meeting.
Trustee
there an
McKee, did you
alternate
want to
now?
respond? There's two people on that committee already.
Yeah, one's an alternate and so he just wants to leave it as is.
Or you,
No, I'd like to have one person or both people has been stated as a co-chair for both positions.
Trustee Poitras?
We found that one of the most important things is relationships and building that face-to-face time. And so if I'm understanding John correctly, by saying alternate, that gives the impression that if the chair can't attend the Wisdom and Guidance Council, then the alternate would go, where me and John both always felt that it was best when both of us attended. That is what we always were doing, is we were both attending the Wisdom and Guidance Council meetings together. I think he was just hoping to have the wording changed so that it made it clear that both should attend as often as possible. Is that right, John?
That is correct, and I thank you for that clarification.
Trustee Long?
So then, LRSD Wisdom and Guidance Council, it would say co-chair Gregory Long, co-chair John McKee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it can be chair or co-chair, both, it would be fine, thank you. We'll just remove alternate. Any other changes? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor? Passed. E4, discussion on possible other committee board representation. At this specific moment in time, I don't think we have anything up and coming. This is something that we can always keep on our agenda if there's a need for another committee to be formed. Okay. I will entertain a motion now to go in camera. Trustee Toon? Yep.
Next meeting, and then just go immediately in camera.
Our next scheduled meeting wasn't until 2, and so typically we can't start our next meeting till the designated time, so we thought we would just go in camera during our board meeting.
Okay.
Meeting.
There isn't, organizational meetings are typically just to discuss the organization of the board, so there typically wouldn't be any in camera to discuss during that portion of the meeting, so that's just why I questioned that.
Trustee Yegus?
I think we should adjourn this, like Trustee Toon said, we should adjourn the organizational meeting, call the other one, even though we're supposed to go on, and then go directly in camera.
Okay. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees vote in favor of meeting being adjourned. Can I make someone to make that motion, please? Trustee Long? At 1:18, motion adjourned. Do we have to do all? Okay. I'd like to call us to order on our board meeting at 1:21. Can we please have our acknowledgement of land? Trustee Poitras.
Okay, hello. Welcome to our division office located on the traditional land and territory of the Niitsitapi, Piikani, Kainai, and Siksika, the Blackfoot people, within the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta.
Thank you. Could we please now stand for O Canada? Recommendation that the September 9th, 2020 consent agenda be approved by the Board of Trustees as presented or amended. Can I get someone to make that motion, please? Trustee Yeagas? Any questions or comments on that? Trustee McKee?
I noticed that when it lists trustees, Jim Burdette must be a very important man because he's been listed twice. And John
Oh.
McKee is not mentioned. But no big deal. I know Jim is a very understanding person.
Thank you for noticing that, Trustee McKee. We will make the necessary changes for our minutes. All in favor? Passed. Moving on to emergent changes to the agenda, recommendation that the September 9, 2020 regular board meeting agenda be approved by the Board of Trustees as presented or amended. Is there any emergent changes to the agenda? Trustee McKee?
I noticed that at the very end of the minutes for that meeting, there is not an end time date listed. Just curious to know if that was just missed, or does an end date need to be in place? In the red, it shows there with no time. For
That is
when,
correct.
yeah.
I do not have a time at the end of the meeting, so I was going to ask if anyone does have that on record.
Oh, sorry, we can go back and look at that. Sorry, Nikki. Yeah, we'll get that to you. Thank you. This was having to do with emergent changes of our agenda that we were on. Is there any emergent changes to our agenda as presented? Seeing none? Oh, sorry, I need someone to make that motion. Trustee Poitras? All in favor? Passed. Declaration of conflict of interest. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees declare if they have any conflict of interest relating to agenda items from the September 9, 2020 board meeting, and if so, should they declare them? Can I get someone to make that motion? Trustee Poitras? Any declaration of conflict of interest? Trustee McKee?
On the, further on into the agenda in item E4, items agreed to under the new section of that, 5.3.4, I will be leaving the room during that motion and the discussion on that.
Thank you, Trustee McKee. Noted. I'm sorry to back up just 2 seconds here, you guys. On our emergent changes to the agenda, I will be moving F8 under E6 as it's an action item, not a discussion item. So if we could make the necessary change, please. Okay. I'd now like to I'd like to make a motion to go in camera, please. Can I get someone to make that motion? Trustee Yegas? At 1:27. Okay, moving on to our action items. E1, school tours and breakfast with the board. Recommendation that the Board of Trustees suspend all breakfast with the board. This includes the scheduled school tours until further notice. Can I get someone to make that motion? Open up the floor. Trustee Yegas?
Just given the fact that we are in a COVID situation and social distancing, et cetera, plus the fact of all the work teachers and administrators have to do, we should not be putting any more burden upon them. So at this point, just leave it as not do it.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Trustee Poitras?
I agree that this would be in the best interest of our staff and students as we're trying to limit the number of people who come into the school, and we're all from different wards and different communities that although those relationships are extremely important, I would agree with Trustee Yegas that at this time, the safety is what needs to come first.
Trustee Yegas?
I'm just going to also mention that it'd also be for the trustees too, because some of us do have compromised,
Immunity?
yes, immune systems, so yes.
Absolutely. Very much so, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Passed. Professional learning. Time will be provided for any trustee to discuss, report, or seek approval for the board for professional learning events. Recommendation to the Board of Trustees approve the following trustees to attend any professional development. Trustee Yegas, chair of that?
I don't know who's chair, but anyhow, it doesn't matter.
Sorry.
It doesn't matter. Do you want to talk to it? Right now, most of the on in-person events have been canceled that we could go to. We have been getting a lot of information on webinars, et cetera, that we can attend. The majority of them are free, thank goodness. And therefore, until further notice that we will not be going to any of these events, or, that we will So we don't have any right now that we can go to at this point.
Great, thank you. E3, oh, trustee Toon.
Thanks. Just kind of while we're on the topic, I thought I'd do this. It was brought up in a committee meeting and committee of the whole. Have a notice of motion, and I emailed that out to everybody and Nikki as well. It's the recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve holding $500 from each trustee's 2020-2021 PD funding for the purpose of providing an additional $500 to next school year's trustee PD budget.
Notice a motion to go on for the next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else under PD? Okay, great. Moving on to E3, our new funding framework. Trustee Poitras will lead us in a discussion and a recommendation of a motion.
Did you want me to read it then? Okay,
Sure.
perfect. So I'll just go ahead and read E3 here. Although school jurisdictions will not be negatively impacted this current school year, the new funding formula based on the weighted moving average calculations will result in reduced revenue for school jurisdictions in years 2 and 3, given the new funding formula. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, an increased number of parents may choose to homeschool their children this school year, which will result in a reduced WMA in future years. So the recommendation then is that the Board of Trustees would write a letter to Minister LaGrange requesting the minister use the 2020-2021 school year as a holds harmless school year, thus postponing the implementation of the new funding framework weighted moving average until the 2021-2022 school year, so that the students are not negatively impacted in the future as well as the result of the pandemic occurring today. Basically what that means is I'd like for our board to write a letter so that this year, when we're in this pandemic and we have a lot more parents choosing to go with an at-home learning or students who are homeschooling, those numbers could have a huge impact on our funding in 2 to 3 years. And by writing this holds harmless letter, that would help reduce the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic on our budgeting in the future.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Trustee Long? Can you turn your mic on, please?
Why the 2021 school year when the pandemic could go much longer than that? I'm just wondering about wording along the lines of until Alberta Health Services declares that the pandemic is over.
Trustee Poitras?
So I think that's really important to remember that we have no idea how long COVID will last. I think giving this to our advocacy committee to work with Carly, our communication specialist, would maybe be the best course of action so that wording and situations like that can be figured out to have the most impact on Minister LaGrange when she receives this letter. I was hoping that it wouldn't go past 2021, but you're right, and we don't know how long this will impact our students. So I think that's a great recommendation.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Toon?
Thank you so much, Trustee Poitras, for bringing this forward. This is really an important thing that we need to advocate on behalf of our stakeholders for. We all know that this is unprecedented what's going on, and the funding framework formula was created at a time when none of us knew any of this was going to adversely affect us. I also want to thank our superintendent for initially bringing up this question when we were discussing things with the minister months ago, that this is something that's been on our radar for a long time, and that I think it's important that we continually advocate to the government to let them know that the challenges that we're facing, so they can be looked at in a timely manner.
Thank you. Trustee Poitras, you commented on advocacy writing the letter. Should that be in the recommendation that the Board of Trustees direct advocacy committee to write the letter to Minister LaGrange? Would you consider that
Yeah.
friendly amendment?
I would consider that a friendly amendment, and I do think it's important when you choose to do something like this that it's specified who's going to take care of it so that it gets taken care of as quickly as possible and not just left. So I think the advocacy committee would be the right group to do it unless anyone else has other suggestions.
Any questions, comments? Trustee Yegus?
Just say that at the beginning where it says that the Board of Trustees, you could just put the advocacy committee of the Board of Trustees, and then that'll
Okay,
take care of it.
okay. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Trustee Toom?
Just a question. So will this letter be sent by the advocacy? I know they'll be drafting it, but clarifying it, saying in the current motion, it said that we would be sent on behalf of the board. It didn't say that we would be drafting the letter. So previous letter that we wrote was on behalf of the trustees of Livingston Range School Division. Is that the intent, that would still go forward?
I think it's important for it to come on behalf of the board, showing that the board supports it. The advocacy committee will come up with it, and then I think that it'll then be written on behalf of the board, though. We'll see it before it goes out. Trustee Poitras?
Then I just had a question, if anyone had any ideas or suggestions on a date do we need to have a date on this to get it completed by, or is, even if there's not a date, is there any thoughts as to when we would need to get this out by, or is it just the sooner the better?
ASAP. As soon as advocacy committee can meet. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a recommendation on the floor that the advocacy committee of the Board of Trustees write a letter to Minister LaGrange requesting the ministry use the 2020-2021 school year as a whole harmless school year, thus postponing the implementation of the new funding framework weighted moving average until the 2021-22 school year, so that students are not negatively impacted in the future as a result of the pandemic occurring today. All in favor? Passed. Thank you. Moving on to E4, ATA mediators recommendation terms for settlement.
I wish to be excused from this item, please.
Thank you, Trustee McKee. We'll call you back in when we're done. On June 25th, the ATA Local 14 and Livingston Range School Division negotiating committees attended a mediation session in which the government-appointed mediator provided a recommendation settlement in his mediator's recommendation terms for settlement report. Prior to this meeting, the ATA Local 14 membership voted and accepted the mediator's recommendation terms for settlement report. The Livingston Range School Division Labor Relations Committee will present the mediator's recommended terms for settlement report to the Board of Trustees for their vote. Trustee Long has a recommendation on the floor for a motion. Would you like to open it up to Trustee Long?
The recommendation from the negotiating committee is that we accept this memorandum. Both the two parties could not come to an agreement without a mediator. However, the mediator worked very hard and was truly unbiased and got both parties to come to terms. Our recommendation is we accept.
Open up the floor for any questions or comments. Seeing none. Trustee Toon?
I'll speak. I want to thank our negotiation team and our staff for a hard job now with the central and the two tables. It's not an easy process to bargain, and I appreciate the work that our trustees and all our negotiating staff and our staff do on that. It's a really tough thing to go through, and I appreciate it.
Great, thank you. All right, seeing no other hands. All in favor? Passed. Thank you. Are you going to grab John? Okay. Moving on to E5. We'll wait till Trustee McKee gets back in the room. Thank you, Trustee Burdette. E5, Deputy Superintendent. Superintendent Seguin will seek the Board of Trustees approval for appointing the Associate Superintendent Chad Kuzic as Deputy Superintendent for the 2021 school year. We have a recommendation on the floor. John, Mr. McKee, Trustee McKee, would you like to speak to the recommendation, please?
Before I make the motion, I'd just like to say that Mr. Kuzic has certainly been a valuable part of the administration team, which is part of the LRSD School Division, and he does a wonderful job, and I certainly appreciate all the effort and the time and hours that he puts into his job. A very dedicated person. With that in mind, I would like to make the motion that the Board of Trustees approve the appointment of Associate Superintendent Chad Kuzic as Deputy Superintendent for the 2020-2021 school year.
Okay, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Seguin.
All right, thank you. Yeah, as John mentioned, Mr. Kuzic has been in division office now, I think since 2012. Yeah, about 8 years. He's had an opportunity to see how the board functions, how the jurisdiction functions from the division office perspective, and worked very closely with our administrators and senior management and trustees over the years. So it's helpful to designate a deputy superintendent early in the year in case something happens to me and affects my ability to be able to function in this role. Then the board has somebody already in place that can step in and act in my role, in my behalf, while I might be incapable of doing so. So I think it's wise to name a deputy superintendent for the year. I've spoken to Mr. Kuzic, and he's ready to step in and fulfill this role. So thank you.
Any questions or comments? Trustee Poitras?
When I became a trustee and started developing these relationships, I realized how important it is to be able to, as a board, have a superintendent or whoever stepping in have a really great, strong relationship. And I am so glad that we have both of our deputy superintendents, associate superintendents, who do a wonderful job. And it's nice to know that we have someone. This year we'll have Chad if we need that to happen, and that he's worked so hard at building those relationships with us as well, and the confidence we have in that. So thank you for that, Chad. Mr. Kuzic.
Thank you. I'd also like to echo, even though Richard Feller's not in the room right now, I'd like to thank him for stepping into the role for the past year as our deputy superintendent, and I'm sure he'll turn his hat over to Mr. Kuzic here. So thanks, Richard. The recommendation on the floor is that the Board of Trustees approve the appointment of Associate Superintendent Chad Kuzic as Deputy Superintendent for the 2021 school year. All in favor? Passed. We move on to E6. Appointment of trustee school assignment, that the Board of Trustees will review the current trustee school assignment. The purpose of the trustee school assignment is to ensure representation at all our schools. Trustee Long has a recommendation on the floor.
The recommendation is that we can continue with the allocation that we have right now of trustees to schools. When this term first started, we had the trustees, 2 or 3 trustees going to the school council meetings, and that certainly wasn't necessary. and the funds could certainly be used better elsewhere. So we allocated one school to each of the trustees, or several schools to each of the trustees, and that system has worked very well. The recommendation is that we continue with the same system.
Okay. Are we just, do you want me to read the list off, or is everybody okay? Just, it was in part of our package. Okay, I will read it off. Ward 1, Town Nanton. A.B. Daly is trustee McKee. High School, J.T. Foster, trustee Toon. Stavely, trustee Toon. Sorry, I'm having a hard time. Thank you. The high school, Willow Creek Composite, trustee Toon. Granham, trustee McKee. Lumbrick, Livingston, trustee Yegus. Blairmore, Isabel Sellen, trustee Yegus. Coleman, Horace Allen, trustee Long. Coleman High School, Crowsnest Consolidated, trustee Long. Fort McLeod, W.A. Day, Jim Burdette. Fort McLeod, F.P. Walsh, trustee Hodges. Pincher Creek, Canyon, trustee Poitras. And Pincher Creek, Matthew Halton, trustee Poitras. So the recommendation on the floor, sorry, gotta go back to it. That the Board of Trustees reviewed the 2019-2020 trustee assignments and approved the trustee school assignments for the 2020-2021 school year as proposed. All in favor? Passed. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can we have a health break? We're about a half an hour ahead of schedule on our agenda.
You would like a break?
Have a health break?
Yes, we can now take, it's 2:34, we'll take a 10-minute, 15-minute, 10-minute health break. Call us back at 2:44. Okay, call us back to order. I'd like to acknowledge that trustee Toon had to leave the meeting, but is now joining us via technology. So now we'll move on to our discussion and information items. F1, International Education Update. I almost called you Trustee Kuzik. Chad Kuzik, Associate Superintendent of Curriculum and Innovations, will provide an update to the Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you. The point of order, that should not be associate now. That should be deputy superintendent.
Thank you.
And Jeff, as long as you notice that as well. Thank you for all the kind words. I really appreciate that too, by the way. This will be a relatively short update. The borders for our international students are still closed. So we cannot accept any international students until that changes. However, I did provide some information of where we're at and if they should open, to give you some information on what that looks like. So the first one is that we have 20 students currently that are enrolled to come if the border should open. Of those 20 students, I gave a quick breakdown of where they may or may not go. I want to say that we do have 5 students that are still remaining in LRSD. They never left. They stayed in their communities, so they'll still continue their programming. We're not sending them home. So they're going to be here continuing their programming, and they've been in their communities, and things have gone successful that way. However, for the 20 students, the 15 students that wish to come, some of them are waiting. We have 10 full year, and I suggest if the border doesn't open up before October, I don't foresee them coming. The other 9 will come for this semester, and the 1 4 months in the spring. So maybe if it opens up, the rest may come. So yeah, there's that. I just want to let everybody know we have COVID protocols in place for quarantine if they do come. And that's the next slide, actually. And it just kind of breaks down some of the practices we'll be doing if they do intend on coming, and we'll review that thoroughly when they come. But basically, I want to let everyone here know we have a plan for them to be quarantined for 14 days and fit to fly is part of this as well, which that's basically ensuring that they're not sick before they get here. And that's working with CAPSI, one of our partners, to ensure that takes place. So we do have protocols in place. We do have spots around our division that will quarantine these students. And if you flip the next slide, you'll see that it's similar to what you've seen before with what we ask all our students, but this will be ongoing for the 14 days until we ensure that they are healthy enough to join our schools. Like I said, it was a quick presentation, but I kind of want to give you an update that most likely at this point, I think we'll be lucky if we have 10 students arrive at our school division going forward. So we're working also very hard to look for next year and the opportunity that may exist. And once things start to settle down and we can ensure the healthy arrival of our kids and them arriving to us, that we'll have opportunities for this program to continue. Any questions?
Any questions for Chad?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Moving on now to F2, Alberta School Councils Association. Mr. Perry our Associate Superintendent for Business Services, will provide information to the board regarding the annual ASCA fee.
Okay, not a lot of information to provide here. The annual fee for ASCA in the past has been about $65. The board has paid that membership fee on behalf of each school council. And so 14 schools at $65 has been about a $910 investment to support the school councils at each school. There's additional supports that support them in some of their functions, as well as attending the ASCA conference, which likely may or may not occur in the future or whatever. So, but there is a budget in place to support them to help some of the individual school council chairs and other members attend that. So that's the investment that the board puts into the school councils.
Great, thank you. Any questions? I know our school councils really, some of our school councils really utilize our Alberta School Councils Association, and so I feel that a membership is an important piece to help our school councils understand their roles and support them. And the conference has always been a great learning tool for a lot of our school councils, and I know some trustees have been able to attend in the past too, and we've been able to learn along with them. So I appreciate that as a board, we support that going forward for our school councils. Thank you. Anything else? No? Great, thank you. Moving on to F3, our reentry update. Mr. Seguin will provide an update on the school division's reentry progress with the Board of Trustees.
Great, thank you. And I'll ask the superintendents to be able to step in as well to answer any questions that you have or add anything that I might forget. But it's been a busy summer, to say the least, right? July 21st is the date that our Minister of Education announced that schools would reopen under Scenario 1. And soon after that, our school division had each school send out a survey to parents to gauge their interest on whether they were going to plan to send their children back to school in person classes or continue with the at-home learning. And then in August, I guess it was August 3rd, the survey closed, and our school administrators, school-based administrators, came in and returned from their summer to come into the school and to go through that data, to reach out and contact anyone who did not complete the survey, to also touch base with parents that might have a few questions that needed some clarity on before they were able to be comfortable in making a decision. And so they spent the greater part of that first week of August in the school pretty much full time there, and then many of them continued on afterwards and put in many additional extra days and hours this summer to prepare for all the things that needed to happen. So, you know, redoing timetables, trying to work around cohorting, to try and look at some of the details of the Scenario 1 reentry plan, and, you know, how could we Or could we not use lockers in our schools? Do we need to move a certain group of students to a different classroom because of the size of the class or something like that? They looked at different models to say, where possible, can we have the teachers move to the classroom rather than the kids have to move, right? So that they could stay in that one spot and try to do all these preventative things to be able to keep it as safe as possible. And then students returned September 1st, 2020. So in our schools, we have lots of various preventative measures. Of course, we have that daily health screening checklist that's so important for parents to be able to go through that checklist on a daily basis with their children before they send them off to school and make sure that they are clear of any symptoms. We've worked hard with our maintenance department and the custodial team to have the enhanced cleaning and disinfecting protocols in place for all the high-touch surfaces. We've increased custodial hours as well. Of course, the physical distancing requirements and the signage that's happening around the schools to keep kids apart and to manage the traffic flow. Many of our schools have staggered entries where they have kids coming in either at different times to kind of keep them apart as much as possible, or multiple doors, designated doors that's just for that particular grade or class. We've increased the hand hygiene requirements and emphasized and taught students, continually teach students, I should say, it's not done yet, around the respiratory etiquette protocols and as I mentioned before, implementing things like cohorting of students, and of course the mandatory mask use for grade 4 through 12 students when they're out of the classroom in the learning commons area and the hallways and that sort of thing, as well as other PPE. Just to give you a little bit of information, and this is still changing, unfortunately, daily. It's a little bit fluid at this time, but right now we have just under 400 students, so about 393 students in K-12 that have chosen to continue with at-home learning. So they still have a teacher from our school division that is in charge of their program, and the teachers touch base with them on a regular basis and monitor their work, provide the instruction and the assessment and answer any questions and that sort of thing. And so 393 students right now are scheduled for at-home learning, and we have another 95 students who have selected home education with Livingston Range School Division. So that is a large increase for us in that particular area. I think we had low 20s last year, maybe 23, 24 home education students, and this year it's right now it's at 95. We have tried to accommodate the at-home learning requests by hiring additional teachers. So in some of our schools we had part-time teachers, and if possible we bumped up their teaching time and we're able to increase them to 1.0 to be able to manage some additional students. Might be from their school, it might be from another school. And in some cases, like in our junior high in particular, we did have to hire separate full-time teachers to do the junior high humanities and the junior high math science as well. So all in all, right now, there's probably an extra 5.5 FTEs that we've put in place there for teachers, and 2 to 3 FTE increase in our support staff. And of course, those costs will certainly add up as we go through, if this situation has to play out through the whole school year. And that's the unknown right now. We don't know if we're looking at several months, or are we looking at the entire school year. And we have passed a budget, or the board did pass the budget back in the spring, and the Minister of Education did approve our school division of using our request to use, I think, $660,000 of reserves roughly. And we know that that was going to be needed for the increased staffing, custodial hours, PPE, etc. Let me see. So you're aware that the Minister of Education announced a little while ago that they would be providing students, every student, staff member, with 2 reusable cloth masks. hand sanitizer, a couple of thermometers, contactless thermometers for each school, face shield for every staff member, and some disposable masks as well. And so as a school division, we will need to keep that stock up, right, and replenish those as the school year goes on. And then there was a recent federal government announcement as well that there's additional funding coming from the federal government flowing through to provinces. And we found out recently, I think it might have been last week, that Livingston Range School Division is to receive 1.211 million of those dollars to help with COVID, with the safety requirements and the transition with the staffing, with PPE for COVID-related costs. So at this time, we've been contacting our school administration, reaching out to our local ATA president and local QP president to gather information on how we can best allocate the resources to meet the priority areas going forward. So there's a quick summary. I'll certainly maybe ask if any of the associates have other items that maybe I forgot that they would like to add, and then maybe we could open it up to questions.
For the high school, we went with a video conferencing plan so that we picked high school teachers with capacity and expertise in their designated area to handle a group of kids that'll come in live through video conferencing. Programming was huge for us. These are kids in grade 11 that may have not got the greatest experience at the end of the year. And now we wanted to ensure that they had a schedule and someone that would look directly at them, maybe less of a blended situation. So that's why we decided to go that route with those students. But with increased demand, as we saw, we have an ad out for a math science portion of that, similar to our Kirby. Mr. Dietz, he also does the humanities. We're going to have a similar portion of that for him to support that workload, because some of the numbers have gotten higher than we wanted for a VC situation, where ideally it's around 5 students that would drop in through a video conferencing session. So that's just an addition to our programming and our needs of our students and how we best can support them in this COVID environment that's just extending over multiple years, and especially for our grade 12 kids. So.
Though we talk a lot about curriculum and its importance, we also recognize that there's a big part of satisfying the preconditions for learning. And one of the things that we've been really working on is having those support structures through learning services to meet the needs of all kids, whether they're in school or out of school. And so through our from early learning through to learning support, behavior support, family school liaison support, and our First Nation Métis Inuit support, we have put together a plan as well through learning services to ensure that those preconditions for learning are met and that students have the necessary resources that they need during this environment.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, Jeff.
Sorry, I'll just add a little bit in regards to transportation. There have been lots of questions around transportation leading up to the school year, and a lot of work has been done in this area as well to ensure that we're transporting students and staff safely, and many of the protocols that have been added to the transportation area have to do with cleaning protocols. We've added additional 20 minutes to every bus driver daily to ensure they have the time to and are compensated for that to clean the buses after every run. So we've found a cleaner that has been used in other transportation departments, companies, and is friendly to the environment as well as to people. And so they use that on after every run. Also, in addition, the transportation department was prepared with masks on the first day of school to ensure that all students that hadn't received their masks from the provincial government had a mask and was able to wear it where required during their first day of transportation. Other parameters have been assigned seating to allow for family members to sit together, and with some students choosing to receive schooling at home, that's alleviated some of the spacing issues in some of our buses as well, and so that's been helpful as well. There also has been communication that's been sent to parents discussing some of the protocols that have been changed, and so they were well informed as their children were preparing to get on a bus in an environment that was somewhat unfamiliar with what has been normal to them. So that's a little bit about what's occurred in the transportation area.
I wonder, Jeff, do you also have the numbers, the preliminary numbers for students for this school year?
Yeah, I mean, you have given some of the numbers with regards to at-home learning and homeschool. The overall numbers, and this is an FTE, so this is looking at ECS or kindergarten children as 0.5. The overall number is about 3,556 students. And of course, like Daryl said, 390 or so are home learners and 95 are homeschool students. The remainder are attending schools. Of the students that I've provided in these numbers, 202 of them are on reserve students. And of those 202, 86 of them are choosing to do at-home learning. Where at-home learning has been described in the past, we provide a teacher to support them on an ongoing basis. It's different than what you would get from homeschool. So that's the numbers where that compares to what our projections are. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but it's looking good as far as what we have. Again, and you talked about this in the past in another one of your items, you know, the amount of students choosing homeschool could have a negative impact on our funding, and so that's something that you're sending a letter to the Minister of Education on. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any questions? Trustee Yegas and then Trustee McKee? You?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, totally questions, comment. I went to all 4 of our schools in our ward with Chad and Mr. Long, Trustee Long, and I was really impressed by the things that they had thought up. I mean, every one of the schools had thought up for the school specifically, because remember, we got a K to 3 and then a 4 to 6, and then and then the high school, and then we got a school that's a K to 12. So, so they were they had done such an excellent job in figuring out things that I would never have thought of for their schools. So I really got to thank the administrators for the great work that they did in doing that reentry plan for all of those schools. And that, I'm sure, with the help of the administrators here from central office, really helped pave the way for a smooth reentry. So thank you, everyone.
Trustee McKee?
Well, that was my exact comment that you just made. I was fortunate enough to be able to go through all 6 schools in Ward 1, and Mr. Toon, about the time that he's a busy man coal mining, but he attended some of the walkthroughs as well. And the amount of hours that went into the preparation for reentry, from the senior administration to the school administrators, the staff, the people, the custodians, and also for the students themselves was just remarkable. I mean, the reentry plans that the schools had from the principals, of course, and with the help from the from the senior administration, were just incredible documents. And some were like pages long. And it's like Clara said, the detail that they thought about. I'm just going back and wow. And the comments that we had Roger Reed was there, and the mayor from Clarisholm, Doug McPherson, was there, and they were very much impressed, with what was going on as well for the reentry. So it's a big round of thanks for everyone for making the reentry successful.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Maybe I'll just add as well. Yeah, I think both our trustees alluded to this, but I just wanted to publicly thank all of our staff right through from every level, right? This pandemic creates a lot of anxiety and uncertain with the unknown, right? And uncertainty with the unknown. But our staff have been tremendous. They have been so innovative. I've seen some of the ideas not only in the things that have been done in the school, but in some of their instructional strategies and approaches on how they can still make the lessons engaging and fun for kids and as much as normal as possible. And they've done some really creative things, and they need to be commended as well and thanked for all the work that they're doing. Of course, just as maybe we close up or wrap up this portion of the meeting, also just want to thank parents for being understanding and patient. We know that this situation is very fluid and it can change very quickly, the direction that comes, depending on the context of your school and your community. And we appreciate in advance their patience and understanding as things evolve and continue to change as we move forward. But so far the reports from the school administrators have been that the kids have been so respectful of the new processes and procedures that are in place at the schools, and they've been very cooperative and just happy to be back. Lots of smiling faces. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Thank you very much. Moving on to, which one are we on? Oh, E5, or F5, organizational chart, sorry. Mr. Seguin will review updates made to the 2020-21 LRSD organizational chart.
Sure, I think Nikki will bring that up for you. Just want to point out every year we kind of just take a couple minutes and go over any changes in the organizational structure as we continue to tweak things according to the year and the needs that we have and the priority areas. So in the new organizational chart for this year, you'll notice that Associate Superintendent Richard Feller has taken on the human resources piece this year too. And I'm so grateful for that. It's a busy piece, and that was something that was added that I took on last year. But of course, having somebody who can have more time dedicated to that area, especially during the time of the pandemic when things with staffing and that is very fluid, being able to have Richard in place to provide that guidance there and oversight has been very valuable for sure. So with that change, we've moved Lisa Furukawa into a director role. So she is now able to have a lot more responsibility and authority to make decisions in that area and run the meetings for that department. So we have a new addition as well, replacing Lisa in the early learning supervisor position is Sandy Harrower. And Sandy comes to us from Calgary Board of Education, and she's relocated into the Crow's Nest Pass, and we're happy to have her join us as well. Other changes in school principalships, just to make you aware, I guess, that we have Sarah Holmgren, who has taken on the principal role at Livingston School. And Sarah joins us from Edmonton Public. And then we have Nick Beer that has moved into the Colony principal position, as well as hanging on to the Grantham School principal. And we also have Chad Jensen moving from Lundberg School into FP Walsh principal. And I believe that's all the changes. I'm looking around because I might have forgot somebody, but I think that's it. Oh, under payroll on the far left, you'll notice too that Ginger Bestplug, of course, has retired back in about April, I believe, and Barbara Raish has taken over. It's a little confusing now because we have Barbara Raish and Barb Murtaugh in payroll, one for teachers and one for support staff, but they often take calls for each other and then just make sure it gets directed to the right Barb. Anyway, any changes or any questions on the changes that we've made to the organizational chart? Great, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Now we'll move on to F6, our vision, mission, and core values presentation. Carly Bond, Communications Coordinator, will present to the board regarding the Livingston Range School Division vision, mission, and core values. Welcome, Carly. Oh. I totally did.
I will try not to cough or sneeze into it. All right. Oh, I'll just stand up. Thanks, Nikki, if you can do that. It's really great to be together again in person after COVID and the summer. It's great to see you again. Lori asked me to just take a few minutes and speak to you about our mission, vision, core values, and identity branding, how that's gone and where we're at now and where we're going. So I will just take a couple minutes to do that. As you remember, most of last year, we dedicated to this process. So in November, we started with facilitated development of our statements, and then we reached out to stakeholders for their feedback. And with that, we then reviewed and made some little revisions and tweaks to what our guiding statements were going to be. In March of this year, then you ratified these statements, and by June we were ready to celebrate and launch our new mission, vision, and core values and identity branding to the community. This poster has been given to every school and it should be in every classroom or learning space in those schools. It's also on the Atrium TV here in the G.R. Davis Administration Building. The bright colors and the clear language are going to help all of us learn and remember our mission, vision, and core values. So about 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to meet with all the new staff hires in the division and to walk them through these new guiding statements. And as we talked about with these people new to the division, what inspiration looks like to them, what meaningful relationships have shaped them, what sort of innovation they bring to their new role, and what they see collaboration being. We had a wonderful discussion, and it was really clear that this mission resonates with these new staff members, and that it's something exciting and something that they can really get on board with and look forward to living in their new role with the division. So these 5 core values you and senior administration chose, and so probably some of them really spoke to you when we were going through this process. Maybe there was also a couple that you felt were really important that didn't make it on the list. And so as we look at these 5 core values now, I would ask you just to consider what they mean now to you, that we've kind of launched this and we've had some time to think about it. And then we can consider what each of us as members of the Livingston Range School Division community can do to live these values in the work that we do here and in our everyday lives. The discussion also that we had with the new staff members, I had them just talk with a partner and pick one and kind of talk about it. And it's really exciting to see that these values can be broadly applicable and yet really, really specific to an individual student in an individual learning situation. And so I think these are going to be great core values going forward. They reflect who we are, but they also give us somewhere to go. Thank you. Every student, every day. What a vision. I love it, and it's super easy to remember, which makes it even better. So it's very direct, but it also has this broad application. As we look towards implementing our new mission, vision, core values, and branding identity, deeper across the division, this is what is going to guide everything that we do. We have a decision to make. We're going to look to this vision. Is this about every student every day? So our identity branding is really the visual representation of our jurisdiction, and all the pieces of that logo have some meaning that connect us to our mission statement, our vision statement, and our core values. Taken together, the elements of the logo in shape, design, and color create a harmonious whole, which reminds us that each student is an individual composed of many facets, strengths, needs, and hopes. And so each time we see the logo, we're reminded of that vision, of our student-centered vision of every student every day. Thanks, Nikki. So even though we just launched this in June, we are well into our cultural implementation. Jeff bought us some fancy new cars that have really nice logos on them now. They look great. Our website is rebranded, and so that is really the central place for information and celebration and sharing with the world who we are in the online world. That's our representation. And from email signatures to boardroom branding, we have a consistent message that really reflects who we are. Every student in the division received a water bottle, a branded water bottle, and all staff members as well received a tote bag. And so this was really intentional to help promote and create this buy-in and this sense of community, that they had something that connected them to our mission, vision, and core values, and they could see themselves in this new culture that we're developing. So as we've worked through this process and as we have shared it with administrators and staff across the division, people are really loving it. They're loving having this really beautiful mission, vision, and core values along with our identity branding, and it resonates with people. It speaks of who we are and the things that we can achieve together. And so the goal really is that all stakeholders in Livingston Range School Division know this and live it and love it. So we'll just watch the little video. This is on our website if you haven't seen it yet.
Trustee McKee?
Maybe silly, but which mountain is on that front image there? Which one, Rick?
That's Beaver Lake, Table Mountain.
Table Mountain. Thank you.
Trustee, sorry, Poitras?
Trustee Lacey?
Trustee Lacey.
I love this. It looks so good. And I just want to say it's so clean and we have it right here. It's easy to access. And when we're making these decisions and you get into these discussions, it's so nice to have something quick and easy that you can look at and not be like, just let me reread that paragraph and see if we're on the right track. You know, it's like, just a minute. Is this every student every day? Is this inspiring excellence? You know, they're quick, they're easy, but they're so deep and meaningful. And I just think all the time and effort that went into this is really going to pay off because we have new people who are coming into our division and right away they know what it's about. It's easy to find, it's easy to see and to remember because it's so well done. So I'm really proud of all the hard work that went into it. I'm really inspired by all the things we came up with, and I think that this is really going to drive our division in the right direction and let all of our families and students and communities know exactly what we're about and which direction we're heading. So I think it's wonderful.
Thank you. Trustee Long?
having the water bottles and bags and everything. It's excellent for the division, but you didn't answer my request.
I apologize, I don't remember your request.
The Mountain cloth and leather jacket.
Oh, yes. We can get jackets.
Seriously, though, it's incredible, Carly. It's excellent. All the work you've done. Just super,
Done. Yeah,
whatever.
Thank you.
Anything else? I just want to say, in just reviewing our vision, mission, core values here, you can see in just what Daryl presented, and Chad and Jeff and Richard on our reentry plan, that this is who we are, and that everything that we represent went into what we did to do our reentry plan for our staff and our students. And so I think it's phenomenal, and it's just going to keep us moving forward. So, yep, we did a great job. Thank you so much, Carly.
Thank you.
So apparently I skipped F4, so we're going to go back to that. Superintendent and CEO board self-evaluations. The superintendent and CEO board self-evaluations have been scheduled for September 28th, 2020, just to make sure everybody has that in their calendars. I have spoken to Cal and David, and they're super excited to work with Livingston Range and do our evaluations. So yeah, the survey will be coming out like right quick. Okay, thank you. Now moving on to F7, our board and admin retreat. Mr. Richard Feller, Associate Superintendent Learning Services, HR, will provide the Board of Trustees with information on the up-and-coming admin retreat focus for this year.
I have to say I'm super excited. I was listening to the words that Carly was sharing, and then what Board Chair Mrs. Hodges talked about, in that, you know, the mission and vision is who we are. But those words without action don't really mean a lot. And so as we take a look, as we move forward into our admin retreat, board admin retreat, what we're going to do is take those words and put them into action. We're going to be moving from who we are to what we do. And one of the things that we're super excited about is that as our leader-to-leader steering committee came to us and said, how can we move from the philosophy to action? And so we took a look at what we do throughout our school jurisdiction in responding to student needs. And though we have Admin Procedure 213, that is just a guide onto the when and the where and the who. But it doesn't really link us to the how. And so through the leader-to-leader steering committee, they brought forward an opportunity for us to work with Jigsaw Learning. Jigsaw Learning, many of you will know, is a company owned by Curtis Hewson and Lorna Hewson, who both worked with us in the past. They have a process that they're going to take us through that will focus on collaborative structures and processes to meet all student needs. And so for the admin retreat, we're going to be spending time with our admin and some of the champions to develop that how-to. What will it look like in our schools through our collaborative response model, and how we can align all of our processes with our mission, vision, values. So that will be the focus for the admin retreat. There will be we're still working on how we can incorporate the board within that, and so that will be to follow. But we certainly want to make sure that we are all on the same page. And the reason why I say right now it's a little bit separate is because the day that Curtis and Lorna are going to be spending with us will be spent directly on the how-to. What are the collaborative structures you already have in your schools? So there'll be a time where we bring everybody together to articulate what that looks like, sounds like, and feels like for Livingston Range School Division. Any questions?
Yeah, Trustee Agus?
I was just going to say, I heard of the jigsaw. In fact, a close friend to one of the teachers that I had as a teacher when I was there, Barb Paris, now works for it. And so I started to read about it, and I was really excited when I reading some of the things. So kudos to you.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Anybody else have any comments?
I'll just maybe add that this is, it's like a workshop series, so it extends throughout the year. There will be different touch points, and Curtis and Lorna will either facilitate in person if possible or online. They've got both ways worked out. But I think there's 5 full days and then some other shorter meetings that will involve more than just the school-based administrators. So they will establish a team at the school who would be kind of the leaders of this. And so that's why the board admin thing is looking a little bit different, and we're trying to figure out how is the best way to involve the board in that, because it's really a PD series that stretches over the course of the year. So we'll have to come back to you with more information.
Trustee Yeages?
I was just going to say that would be a great PD opportunity for the board to be involved with that. So when you set a PD one, whatever way we can get involved would be really fantastic. So thanks.
Any other comments? Awesome. Thank you. All right, so that brings us to the end of our meeting where we have our 3 key messages from today's meeting. What would you like to see? Trustee Poitras.
Our new vision, mission, and value. Yeah. I said our new vision, mission, and values. Did we already do that? Yeah, I think we should do it again now that we have our fancy name tags, and just that, I think even just showing that little video would be awesome.
Okay. Trustee Long.
Mr. Cusick, appointed Deputy Superintendent.
Trustee Yeages.
And the agreement with the
Ratification.
the ATA, yeah, the ratification.
Oh, memorandum, sorry, yeah. Mediator. Right. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, we have 3. Is that good for today? To start out with. Yeah. Awesome, everybody. I'd like to have a motion to go in camera. We just have a short in-camera session. Yeah. Trustee Yeages, whoever wants.
Yeah, I guess this one.
At 3:37. Yep.
I thought he was trying to get in a 4th key message.
Okay, bye. Okay, motion to adjourn. Trustee Burdette? All those in favor? At 4:19. Thank you.